Hi, my name is Lowell Joseph Gallen, and I would like to welcome you to this evening's program in our Root and Branch Association English Language Conference and Lecture Series hosted at the OU Israel Center in Jerusalem, Israel. We are very proud that we are now celebrating the 22nd year of our English Language Conference and Lecture Series, which began in January 1995. Today is Thursday, July 27, 2017, the 4th of Av, 5077, and we are very happy to have as our speaker this evening Mr. Tsvi Misinai. Tsvi is the founder of Sapiens International Corporation and now the founder of the Engagement Movement. The subject of tonight's talk is the Jewish roots of Israel's Palestinians. I'm putting Palestinians in quotes. And now I would like to introduce our program chair, Dr. Les Glassman, who will have some words of introduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lal. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for a topic that is very, very topical. We see a lot happening currently in the world media, focused in this area, in Israel, the Holy Land, and I think we have to get to the root of the problem to understand why is the world fascinated with what's going on in this part of the world. So much is happening, and yet the focus of the world attention is here in Israel and in this region. So it's a great honor and a privilege to have you speak to us tonight. We look forward to this fascinating talk. And without any further ado, Tsvi Misinai.
Thank you. Okay, the main subject or the main target is how finally peace can be made here in this country. And the first question is why the direction, the Oslo direction of the two states can never happen. And everybody going in this direction will not get any positive result. There have been already many negative results, but nothing positive. The Israeli left is still pursuing this because they want peace and they don't know any other way, and they don't understand why this will not work. The Israeli right understand much more, but they think that peace cannot be made. So the first question is, what is the obstacle? Now, what happens behind the failures of all the attempts up to here is the Muslim direction that land that has been controlled by Islam cannot be voluntarily given to others by an agreement, or agreed to be taken by others by an agreement. If it was taken by force without an agreement, that's okay, that's the reality. But if a Muslim leader has to sign anything, and in this agreement is giving up a land that was controlled by Muslims in the past, that's something which is forbidden. This is why Sadat was murdered, and this is even in 47, after the UN declaration, the partition declaration, the Iraqi foreign minister arrived and spoke in the Washington with the head of the Middle East Department in the State Department, and told him, we'll never agree to a Jewish state. We'll fight and do whatever is needed, and we'll sacrifice everything in order to prevent it. Later, Abdul Nasser said, because the demand was to return the refugees in order to make peace, even before 67, Abdul Nasser said that once the Palestinian refugees will come back, this is the end of Israel. Because we'll become a minority, and by democracy there will be here a Muslim majority, and that's the end of a Jewish state. That's why they objected in 47 and 48 to the UN resolution about the two states, and they invaded here because this objection. Later, when Arafat was negotiating with Barak in Camp David, and no result was taking place, Arafat initially told Alan Baker, I met Dr. Alan Baker, that was the Israeli foreign minister representative, and Arafat liked him and treated him like his own child, taking care that he will eat. He told me, Arafat told him then, that if he's going to sign anything, in 48 hours he will be assassinated. Later we heard from a bodyguard of Arafat that if Arafat was going to sign anything, he himself, the bodyguard, will assassinate Arafat. Further, after the failure of the talks in Camp David in the end of 2000, that brought immediately the Intifada, Arafat was interviewed by the Arab media. It was 5 years after the murder of Rabin, and Arafat said to the media that asking why he didn't sign anything, he told them, if I was ready to sign anything for the signing ceremony, I would have drank coffee with Rabin. Not here, in another world. Okay, this is clear why they cannot give up anything and agree on anything. If he give them, Barak was giving them East Jerusalem, and to their surprise, because they never dreamt that this is possible, initially, when they signed the Oslo Agreement, they said that they will march and fight on Jerusalem. When they got what they wanted, they raised the refugee issue in order to make the talk fail, because they understood that Israel cannot afford to bring these refugees. So they will do anything in order to make it fail. Olmert tried to give them anything more than anybody before, and still he was not successful. And he doesn't understand why. This is simply because they cannot sign anything that will recognize and agree to the existence of Israel. And this is why this two-state solution cannot work, and it will not happen. And regardless of the fact that if it was done, then this is a major danger for the existence of Israel, just giving up the Judea and Samaria and letting them do from there whatever they are doing from Gaza. So in general, there's no reason for it, there's no logic for it, and it cannot happen because of the Muslim direction, instruction that the Holy Land for Islam cannot be given by an agreement to non-Muslims. So then the question is how to make peace finally. Of course, the Israeli right knows that it will never happen. Maybe they don't know the exact reason, sometimes they know, sometimes they don't know, but the question is still how peace can be done. And the answer is the following. The majority of the Palestinians here, including Israeli Bedouin and Israeli Arabs, those within the Green Line, are actually the blood brothers of the Jews and of Israelites. 90% are of this origin, that they were forced to become Muslims. Part of it became Christians, and later most of the Christians became Muslims as well. But their blood is Jewish or Israelite, the majority is Jewish or Israelite, and Only the culture is Arab, most of the Muslim, but this is not the blood. By the blood, they are not Arabic. Let me just mention few top examples. The entire senior management of the PLO, of the Fatah movement, are of a Jewish origin. If you take, and this was on Israeli radio about 2 months ago by Yoram Gaon, that has taken the information from me, received the information from me. Abu Mazen is a descendant of a rabbi from Tzfat. There was a rabbi in Tzfat about 350 years ago called Moshe Abbas that arrived from Saloniki and was here for some period. His family was here in Tzfat, and for more than about 200 years they stayed Jewish. In 1835 there was a massacre in Tzfat by Muslims. And the background now for that massacre is not important. Some tens of Jews were massacred in Tzfat. The majority fled out of the city and stayed in the forest there. And after the authorities got control of the situation, they came back. But the family of Abu Mazen, 200 years after that rabbi, decided they don't want problems anymore. And they decided that they are going to become Muslims and keep all this background in secret. So nobody will speak about it. But it is well known, for example, in 1988, when the Israeli naval commando assassinated Abu Jihad, the number 2 of the Fatah, that was supposed to be the heir of Arafat, they had to select a heir to the heir. And there have been 2 candidates, Abu Mazen and Abu Iyad. They selected Abu Iyad because they said that Abu Mazen has a Jewish background. Abu Mazen has done his PhD thesis on reducing the number of the Jewish victims in the Holocaust. This was his kosher certificate to become part of the Palestinian leadership. And in Tunis, in the headquarters of the Fatah, on his door, on his office, other people from the leadership wrote as a joke on his door, the Jewish agency. I met somebody that came in 93 to install an iron door in his apartment in Ramallah. Abu Mazen was late, and that guy was still waiting. That's a Jewish guy waiting for him. And the neighbor, Abu Mazen was new, the neighbor that invited that guy to install the door asked that guy, are you still waiting for this Jew? Because what happened in 88, that Abu Mazen was not chosen because of his Jewish origin, was published in some Arab newspaper, and people knew about it. In the funeral of Peres, Abu Mazen came, and he was caught weeping, crying. And first, there was a question why he came, and he was attacked by Hamas. And the foreign minister of the Hamas stated that this is because of the Jewish origin of Abu Mazen. But he was like the Jewish refugees in Babylon that were sitting on the river and crying, remembering Zion. He remembered his Jewish background and his decision, his family decision to desert. And he sees how miserable are the Palestinians today, and what's the situation in Israel, and he understands that this was a mistake. But he's not alone, he is the #1 leader. But if you take, for example, Dr. Saab Barikat. I heard initially that their tribe, it was a Bedouin tribe that settled as Falachim, I mean like peasants in Abu Disir in Jerusalem. He himself lives in Jericho. And I heard from that village to check, they didn't say explicitly, the background of the three tribes living there. One of them is the tribe of Arikat. I wasn't able to track the person that sent the message to me, but later I found that they are of a Jewish origin. And by coincidence, I met his nephew and the daughter of his sister, and she told me that they know they are of a Jewish origin. Later, a delegation came from Germany that read my book in Arabic at that time to interview him. And they asked him, is it true what's written here in the book that you are of a Jewish origin? He said yes. Is it true that all the 100 families that are mentioned here are of a Jewish origin? He said, I don't know about all of them. There are about 10 that I know this is right. The others I don't know. Then they asked him, do you want in one state for one people? He said, no, we want 2 states. So they asked him, is it because you want to continue cheating and stealing? This was their action. And I published a report about the corruption of the Palestinian Authority. About every year, they're embezzling in the magnitude order of 2 billion euros. They are getting about 4 from the West. The Arabs are not stupid to continue giving it to them. And they're embezzling too. One of the people that was an embezzler was responsible all the Palestinian security forces except for Hamas. And he was found taking every month 450 salaries. He was removed from his position and became the military advisor of Abu Mazen. And this is because he was not punished and so on, because he knows about all the other crooks. They are embezzling this money and leaving the population in poverty. And then it's easy to incite them against Israel, because always somebody else is to be blamed. Not the Arabs, not the Arab leaders and so on. So this is why all these youngsters, naive youngsters, that are studying in the Palestinian education system, you can incite them very easily against Israel. But nobody will tell them what is the real origin. So this is one thing. Barghouti is known from his village. It's the same village from where the murderer came to kill the family just a few days ago. It's called Kubar. Their family in that village is known of their Jewish origin. Then Jibril Rajub, their family name, there was an article recently in one Israeli newspaper, Makor Rishon. This originally a Yemenite family that came to that area, and many know about their Jewish origin. Their original name is Argov. So they changed it to Arjub because there is no Gimel, no G in Arabic, and there's no O in Arabic, in literary classical Arabic, so they made it Rajub. So this is another one, Dr. Nabil Sharat. They know also their Jewish origin. I heard it from one family member from Egypt. And Hanin Zorabi, many know about their Jewish origin. She doesn't know, but maybe now she knows, but in the past she didn't know. And if you take Hamas, what we know about individual is the head of the Palestinian parliament from the Hamas, Dr. Aziz Luwek from Hebron, is of a Jewish family, Mughrabi family that came from the Maghreb, from Morocco, and they are Kohanim. So this is the non-famous Palestinian leaders, top leaders, but it goes everywhere. We have done a study over many years, going around Judea, Samaria, and Israeli, Arabs, and Bedouin, and it's known everywhere. I can give more and more examples, but it is both stories, testimonials, and Jewish customs, and also Jewish science. And I have here a presentation of several signs that we see, Magen Stars of David's, and menorahs, and other stuff that you can still see signs of the Jewish origin. And the main issue is that their situation is that horrible. Most of them, not all of them, because those that can work in Israel are making decent living. But those that cannot work in Israel for several reasons and are either deprived of real income or working for the Palestinian Authority, their economic situation is miserable. For example, their Minister of Health, they got initially grants to buy drugs for the people. So they stole the grants, then they got the drugs, and these drugs were sold in Israel, and the money was taken by the crook. There is one minister that called the Palestinians not to work for Israeli factories in the settlements, like in Barkan, and then leave them without living. But he himself was found stealing $6 million. So, and everything was published in their media. And there's more and more. And this is why, on one hand, the population feels miserable, and on the other hand, they are using their ability to control the education and the mosque in order to insult the naive youngsters. Most of the adult people know about these crooks and don't want them. There was a survey done about 5 years ago by the El Najaf University in Nablus that asked 4,000 people in Judea and Samaria what is their preference, and they prefer to be part of Israel. 80% voted to be part of Israel. Then the Palestinian Authority, and this is mainly because of the corruption, they're voting for, not only in Gaza, everywhere, for the Hamas, was a reaction to the corruption of the Palestinian Authority. They didn't know that they're getting something worse. But in general, later, after there was, it was a very bad publicity for the Palestinian Authority, the instruction, they are controlling their budget, the instruction in Najaf to take down this survey and put a fake survey that's showing that the majority wants to be part of the Palestinian Authority. And so when I'm approaching people in the world telling them about this reality, that the survey cannot be found anymore. So we have a lot of customs, Jewish customs that we found. In one village, Bar Mitzvah, most of the people, they are circumcised after a week. They don't call it a day, after a week. We have videos you can see in our website about these customs. I will not show it here, but for example, many women remember that when they were baking pitas in their home, they were taking part of the dough and putting it on fire. And this is in Hebrew called hafrashat challah. And many at that age didn't know what is the reason. We asked them, why are you doing it? Our grandmother told it to our mother, and our mother told it to us. What's good in it? It's a blessing. A famous big family, Khatib, I will tell you the meaning of Khatib. I asked them, they told me this is a blessing against the ghosts. What is Khatib? Khatib is a preacher in Arabic. Why they got this name? After they became Muslim, they told them, preach now to all the others. And there is more and more and more examples like this. In general, 90% of all this non-Jewish population are of a Jewish origin. I mentioned Abu Mazen. There is a famous Knesset member called Zoher Baalul. He's also a descendant of a rabbi. There was a soccer player in the past, including in the Israeli team, national team, called Zai Armeli. They are Christians from Shfarm. He is also a descendant of a rabbi. And many others are descendants of Jews, those that I mentioned. But even in Jordan, there are many knowing their Jewish origin. For example, Bani Sachar. Bani Sachar, they are saying they are the sons of Issachar, from the tribe of Issachar. There is a very known tribe called Habitat, a very big tribe in Jordan, very loyal to the king. Many commanders of the army, Jordan army are coming for them. The previous commander of the Jordan Air Force was from Habitat, and somebody that worked for us visited his, he is the friend of that Air Force commander. He visited his home. The commander was not there at that time, and he had a headache. He asked the father of the commander to give him some pill for the headache. So instead of it, the father brought tefillin, put it on his head, and said something, and the headache disappeared. And there are many stories like this everywhere. But I want to share, above all, why I've decided to investigate it. There are several genetic studies that show it. Actually, the stories about this, I will get to genetic studies in a moment, started in the middle of the 19th century. There was a British consul in Jerusalem, and he was taking a trip every weekend in the neighborhood, in the mountains, in the neighborhood of Israel. And as you mentioned, somebody in Queens that doesn't go to the other neighborhood of New York. He met many villagers that never came out of their village, didn't know even the neighboring village, but most of them knew the names of the cities of shelter. When a murderer by mistake was found being guilty for the murder but not by intention, he had to go to one of these 6 cities, 3 here west of the Jordan River, 3 east, and they knew 5 of the 6 names. All these ignorant Falahim. They didn't know any neighboring village, but they knew these names. This looks amazing to him. His wife was fluent in Hebrew and Arabic, and she checked the customs of the villagers and found many customs that are of a Jewish origin. So later there was a major in a delegation, in a British delegation that came here. Most of the delegates were dealing with archaeology, like Robinson. They found the Robinson Ark near the Temple Mount. But one called Condor, he checked, he spoke with the people, and he found many elements of Hebrew and Aramaic in the local Arab dialect, which shows some of the origin of that language. But he found that 34 of the villages here had the same name with some Arab notation of the original settlements from 2,000 years ago. And he said, and Ben Tsvi later, the second president of Israel, quoted him, that if the population left away, the village was destroyed, and somebody else like Arab came here, they will not use the original Hebrew name. So it shows that the population stayed here. Just they changed their identity, they changed their religion, most of all. So I will go now to show you some of the pictures of what we found over the years. I'll use this one. Another one here. I hope. I will get the weather. Okay. We have to, in a moment, tell some. But can we take the light off?
Yes, yes.
There? Okay, this is from Nabi Samuel. Nabi Samuel is near Jerusalem. This is the prophet Samuel, Shmuel and Navi in Hebrew. Sorry, these are houses that were built on the walls of that structure. This is the grave of Shmuel and Navi, and Palestinians lived there until 67, because this was taken by Israel in 67. And we actually found a family member that used to live here. He knows his Jewish origin. He is from the vicinity of Jerusalem. And not only that he told us as Palestinians that lived here, and we found others that say that they also had stars of David above the entry to the home, but you see the hall above the Star of David. This hall was used to put there some vegetation in order to hide the Star of David. They put some bush there, a small bush. They put some soil in the hall and put a bush there to hide the Star of David when it became a trouble. And it's not only here. Let me go now and show a bit more. But I can move this one. Okay, you can give me this speakerphone. Okay. This is from Ein Karem. That's the old house in Karem. You see here both Star of David, but also the five-edged star, which is Muslim, and the crescent, which is Muslim as well. And on the two sides of the crescents there are stars of David, and then there are flowers also with, one of them is with 7 edges and one is with 6. So that's another place. And from that same location we have more. This one, I will show later more from that place, from Ein Karem. This one is nothing less than Dir Yassin. Dir Yassin, which is used as the base for the Nakba, of the base of the Palestinian narrative, there being the victims of the Jews, had many families of a Jewish origin as its inhabitants. And this is just one example from Dir Yassin. Today it's a neighborhood in Jerusalem. This is another case of Star of David, you see above the door in Dir Yassin. Just to give you more detail, in the middle of that Star of David, it's said in Arabic, the Seal of Solomon, because in Islam, the Star of David is called the Seal of Solomon, because David was a fighter and Solomon was a wise guy, or wise, so they wanted the Jews to be considered as wise and not as fighters. But they never had this Star of David on private homes. Only Jews had them, or those of a Jewish origin had them on their homes. But it was written like this for protection. This is not a Star of David, this is the Seal of Solomon. This is another 2 Stars of David from Dir Yassin. This is from Ein Karim. Again, on the top you can see 3 Stars of David, but they are not in the normal angle. There are
Slanted.
Noted or
Slanted.
by 90 degrees.
Right.
So also for 55 is possible. And there's more. This is in Lifta. You have a Star of David on the one above the window of one of the deserted homes. This is in Mamila. This is a Mamluk graveyard near the Temple Mount. And you can see on the middle left there is a Star of David which is partially erased. And this is a menorah from the same Muslim graveyard. All or almost all the graves are not directed or are not going in the direction of Mecca, they are going in the direction of the Temple Mount. But Muslim graves have to be directed towards Mecca. This is another place in Kaukab, Abu al-Hijj. The people there had to become Muslims in the time of Salah ad-Din, but it was a fake Islam like everywhere. So you can see here there was a Star of David that was filled with the marble glue, and on top of it they made the 5-edged star to hide the original Star of David. Now, but the glue fell over the years. This is one of the family of Abu al-Hijj. It's not before Salah ad-Din, it's not that old. You can see the entire grave on the right side, and what is important here is the base of the grave is about 70 centimeters high. In Islam, initially, a base was not permitted. Later, they permitted a base of 20 or 30 centimeters. So this is entirely not a Muslim grave. It's not the holy one. In the same place, which is called Makam Abu al-Hijj. Makam is a holy place. They light candles. You can see there.
The same as Macau in Hebrew?
Yeah. And there are no candles in Islam, which means this is pure Jewish custom. On the right side, you can see holes to put candles there on the base of the graves, which are in that location. Here, this is from Meron, the Hilula, 1920. Not only Jews were there, but Arabs with kafir. That it was the customs from years and years to come to that place in the Lag BaOmer. It was in the 20s. This is in Beersheba, another Magen David with the crescent, Star of David. Yeah. This is from Jaffa. It was an Arab home, and on the right side below you can see the Star of David on the glass. This is nothing less than the headquarters of the Tanzim in Albira. If you remember, the Tanzim was part of the Second Intifada. They had several Stars of David. They erased part of them, but this one was left because it was not that much in the front. This is another thing from Albira. The lion, the calf of the lion of Judah, another sign of Judah, and this is from Samoa, the same place of Jibril Rajub. Above the mosque, it's called Al-Amari. You have on the top of the door, you have a menorah. You see there, below the top of the wire, there is a menorah, old menorah. They didn't make it. They took it from something that was destroyed. So when they were asked, why do you put the menorah there, they said, we found this stone, we put it here. And there are many lies like this everywhere. This one is from Yatta. Yatta, in 1947, the UNSCOP, United Nations Special Committee on Palestine, declared that the majority of the inhabitants of Yatta are Jews, not of a Jewish origin, are still Jews. But we didn't go there in 48, 49, and the Jordanians got control, and they had to hide their Judaism. Some families still like Hanukkah candles, Shabbat candles, read Torah, but and even bake matzah for Passover in their home. But they have to appear as Muslims. So this is why in the middle the sign is not a Star of David, but some kind of a flower with the Christian. But again, 6 edges flower or 6 leaves. This is from Bidya, another near Ariel. On the top, above the door, you see a hole, and that hole is surrounded with the Star of David. I know the people, they are activists in our movement, and there is more from Bidya. You see, this is another place called Valley. Valley is almost like Makam, less important, and there are holes inside to light candles, which has nothing to do with Islam. You see, on the right low side, there are these holes. These are from a place called Bet Ta'amer. That's the origin of the Ta'amra tribe, very big tribe, that many know about their Jewish origin and still say today. And you see on the left side, there is a Star of David, but it was sabotaged. So you don't know if it is 5 or 6 edges. If it was 5, there was no need to sabotage it. But you can see also the base of the grave is high. It's not 30 or 20 centimeters. This is what is behind the gravestone. The gravestone is vertical. In Hebrew it's called matzeva, nitzav. It's vertical, the gravestone, not the base. This is another place, in a place called Armenia, that there is a hole in the grave, very old graveyard, that was a very primitive place to put Ner Neshama, or like this is in Gaza, 1914. All the bases are high. This is one graveyard of Gaza from that period. These are Bedouins from Jordan. The left one is from 21, about 100 years ago. Bani Hassan, a Bedouin from Bani Hassan, came towards a celebration of the Higher Commissioner, English Higher Commissioner, British Higher Commissioner at that time, Herbert Samuel. It was in Jordan, and he has tzamot. How do you say tzamot? This one that ladies have. Braids, yeah. He has braids. What are these braids? The other one is El Bdul. Dul is in Hebrew Hanivdalim, those which are different. And he has also braids, but he has also peot. And these are Jews hiding peot in this way. And it's known from them what is their origin. These are, somebody mentioned, they knows this, these are Jews from Chaban. Chaban was close to Yemen, and this was Jews that lived in Chaban. They are called Gibor. They were the best in all the region as fighters with swords or short swords called Shabaria that you can see here. Two of them have these braids. One of them has peot, the right one. And this in the middle is the Emir at that time, Abdallah, later the first king of Jordan. Two of them has Arab names like Said. The one has the name Saadia. And Abdallah, and later another king of Saudi, and the Emir of Kuwait, you're using the Chabani Jews, they were not appearing as Jews, as bodyguards. Why? Because they themselves were originally Jewish, all these rulers. It's known very well about the king of the dynasty of Saudi. And they cannot trust a real Arab Muslim, because if he hears that they are originally Jewish, he may kill them. He may betray them, let somebody else kill them. But they can trust those that are real, originally Jewish, to protect them.
The main concentration of them here in Israel now is Mossad Boreket.
Okay, thank you. So these are the also Bani Hassan, but this is part of Bani Hassan, which is from Chaban. These are the Yitzchak ben Tsvi found in a place called Sair, the family of Bar Kokhba. Bar Kokhba original name was Bar Koziba, and they are called today Kawazba. They changed their name. We have in one of the movies you can see on our website, they're telling about their originally being Jewish. But this is a very wide Hamula, very wide clan today. One of the families is kept Judaism until today. All the clans of Sair are of Jewish origin. This is very well known. But this particular family was still practicing Judaism. They have a small Siddur there on the right both side. They have a menorah, they have this Hamsa, whatever, and some consultant of Bibi took this family out of there to a safe place in Israel. This is in Bet Hanina. They have menorahs there, the two candlesticks on the left side and more on the right side. And the husband of that family, part of them live in the US and they know everything well. The husband told us, we are of Jewish origin. It's very easy to go to the market in the old city and buy these candlesticks. But this is the origin of our family. His wife was afraid to admit that she is Jewish. We asked her, she said, oh no, we are not Jewish. But when we asked her about the customs, her customs, she immediately spoke about Afrashat Chala and other stuff. She didn't know this is Jewish, so she wasn't afraid to say it. But this shows what they are. And there are many, many like this everywhere, with knowledge, with science, and so on. Let me see if I have more. This is from a place called Bet Awa. Hanukkah, candle stick, and Shabbat candlestick from the same village. Bet Awa is west of Hebron, near the Green Line. Nashashibi Nashashibi was an effendi. This is a rich, respected family that owned, like many others, a lot of land. And he was the competitor of Haj Amin al-Husseini. Haj Amin al-Husseini wanted, and in about 29, they were controlling the Effendis. They were the leader of the Effendis. Haj Amin al-Husseini wanted to get this role, so he, because the Zionists came and gave work to the Falahim. Prior to this, the big Effendis owned a lot of land and were leasing it to the Falahim and getting paid for it. When the Jews came, they gave work to the Falahim. They didn't have to pay anything to the Effendis that sold swampland to the Jews. But some of them were angry on the fact that Jews are depriving them of ongoing income. So he decided to make massacres among the Jews. Initially he made one in 2090, then he made another one, a more famous one, in 1929. And this is in order to get more support against Nashashibi. And this was a big massacre. I will not go now in the details of this, but Nashashibi was pro-British, Husseini was pro-Nazi. He collaborated with Hitler, and in October 37, Hitler initially, I will not get too much about Hitler, but initially his plan was to get rid of the Jews from Europe, especially in the areas that he controlled or was going to control. His initial plan was to send them to Palestine. And initially there was something called transfer agreement that Arlozorov signed with the Nazis to send all the Yekes, all the Jews from Germany here. Not all of them, but something like 60,000 arrived here and brought a lot of property and made the economy better, and the Falahim also had a lot of work, and this caused Haj Amin al-Husseini to make, starting from 36, the big riot. So Eichmann came here in order to sign further deal with the Jews, but to get also the agreement of Haj Amin al-Husseini for this. But the representative of Haj Amin al-Husseini said, what are we fighting for? Are we going to permit more Jews here? And this caused Eichmann to tell Hitler, we have to look for other places. So they tried some other places in Europe, they tried Madagascar, and nothing worked out. So because of this, they had to divert to the extermination plan. That was always an option, but not initially not the preferred option of the Nazis. This is one of the role of Haj Amin al-Husseini. He provided here intelligence for the Nazis, while Nashashibi was providing intelligence for the British. And Haj Amin al-Husseini planned 2 extermination camps here for the case that Rommel will win El Alamein. So this is all about Nakba and Jewish occupation and so on. You can see who started with this hostility and with this violence and so on. Now, in the riot, Arab riot between 36 and 39, about 400 Jews were killed. 40,000 left the country because of the violence. Jews, but he killed about 5,000 to 6,000 Palestinians that objected to him, like the Nashashibi and many others. I know some personal stories. Later, the British sent him away or were trying to arrest him. He moved to Iraq and participated together with Rashid Ali in the Nazi riot against the British in Iraq. Later, he moved to Berlin, and he participated in a Nazi propaganda. the Nazi propaganda against the British. He spoke on the Berlin radio for the Arab countries. And he was a friend of Hitler. And there have been many attempts in the end of the World War II, towards the end, to save groups of Jewish kids and others in Southeast Europe. And everything that he heard is going to happen because of some deals with local Nazi commandos, he immediately spoke with higher level Nazis to prevent these opportunities to save hundreds of Jews. So this is just to give you a background for the origin of the conflict being controlled by crooks initially, and later, currently we have the new crooks, which are again creating and preserving the conflict. There are all these excuses, we are going to steal Al-Aqsa and so on. But this is the base for the conflict, the corruption, which is the result of the Arab culture, and these crooks are preserving it. Now, I will go to the genetic studies. The genetic studies, the first one was done about some kind of a blood problem, which is called the crescent anemia. And it was found among Palestinians and among Jews. But this was a small study. Later, in 2000, there was a study on the Y chromosome, the male Y chromosome. It was found that the Palestinians are very close to the Jews, even more to European Jews, because the Palestinians were left here after the destruction of the temple, while the Jews that were sent to Europe were from here at that time. They are also very close to other Jews, but not as close as to Ashkenazi Jews. Actually, it was found that Ashkenazi Jews are closer to people in Saudi than the Palestinians. Then there was another study on the immune system where there was a very high resemblance. It was done by a university in Spain. Then they found that the Tay-Sachs, that's a known disease of the Ashkenazi Jews. Also the Palestinians have this disease out of the entire world. They found some kind of inherited deafness that around the entire world only Jews and Palestinians, a small minority, but have this kind of inherited deafness. And they also found that when you're making a bone marrow transfusion between people, then if you take a Jew against anybody from the world, the fitness or the fitting of this as a donation is 1 in 250,000. But among two Jews is 1 in 50,000. Also among Palestinians it's 1 in 50,000, but between Jews and Palestinians is also 1 in 50,000. So there are several genetic tests that show that we are blood brothers. This caused me, the initial was, later I heard more, that we are blood brothers. And then I started to investigate everywhere and found that about 90% of them west of the Jordan River are originally either Jewish or Israelites. And there are many details you can read. If you read Hebrew, I can leave you a book about what we found. The main point that broke Judaism here was about 1,000 years ago, when there was a decree by the Fatimid Caliphate that controlled the area here from Cairo, that every non-Jew and non-Muslim has either to become Muslim or leave the country. At that time, the Jews here were not able to leave. They were peasants. They had nothing to be able to move to another location. And most of them made themselves as if they are Muslims.
When was this?
1020. Let me move back there because I finished using the presentation. So we have all the possible proofs that we are actually the same people, but with different culture. And there is a conflict which is created and maintained by crooks and by greed. And of course, the Arab countries are just victims to this as well, because you know how many Egyptians sacrificed themselves to help the Palestinians. And for example, Haj Amin al-Husseini in 47, after the United Nations Declaration Partition resolution, he went to Arab countries to incite the public to push their leader to invade him. This was a main reason for the 48 war. Now, you can see videos on our website. Our website is called the-engagement.org. It has the the-engagement.org. There is the English section there. The front page is Hebrew, but you can switch there to English. And you can see several videos about customs, about testimonials, about explanations, how it started. Actually, most of the families preserved some kind of knowledge, normally also customs, until the first Zionist Aliyah came, even before Herzl, before the official declaration of Zionism, like Hovevei Zion and others from the beginning of the 80s of the 19th century. Actually, prior to this, the Ottomans didn't care that actually these Falahim that in all the census appeared as Muslims, but they have Jewish custom. It was a small minority, about 300,000 out of the Sultanate that was huge, had at that time tens or even more of millions, from Morocco until Persia. But at that time, many Jews arrived here, some 10,000, especially to Jerusalem, for religious reasons. But when secular Jews came here, the first Zionists, even before Zionism, came here, they were afraid that these Falahim of a Jewish origin, knowing the Jewish origin, will join with the secular Jews on a national agenda, not on a religious agenda. And they were afraid because they knew that the Jews had some power in the world, some influence. And then they started persecuting the locals and sending inspectors to see that they are not using Jewish customs. In one case, in our main video, you can see a Bedouin of an age now, she's 120 more or less, I hope that she still lives, that says that we're lighting candles on Thursday night and Friday night, which is Sabbath evening. Why this happened? Because initially they were lighting candles on Saturday Eve. But when the inspectors, the Ottoman inspectors came, they were afraid and they initially lighted candles on Thursday Eve, like the Eve of Friday, which is the holy day for the Muslims. Though no Muslim does this custom, but they made it. If they have seen in Friday no inspector came, they lighted also on Saturday Eve. So you can see a lot of stories from that period that until then they were openly speaking about them being Jewish, despite that they were declaring themselves Muslims. But after after that period that the Turkish persecuted, they punished people and so on, then they stopped these Jewish customs, and they were called Tamimi. Tamimi in Hebrew, innocent. Those that stopped cheating. And there is a very big clan in Hebron, it's called Tamimi. Some of them are a big sheikh, and I know one which is a Salafi sheikh, and they declare they want, and he's part of 5,000 imams that wants to have coexistence with the Jews. So there is another family that in 29, with the massacre there, the British evacuated all the Jews after the massacre. But one family was left there. They are called Muhtasbin. It was a rich family. They had jewelry shops and didn't want to leave the shops behind. So they stayed, and after a while they had to become Muslim. So they have a book in Hebrew here, full with stories about family, with the Jewish origin, and so on, customs, etc. And it's up to us to change the situation, because all the hostility that you see here is managed by these groups inciting people, and the youngsters are frustrated and they are willing to sacrifice themselves. Those that come to the prayers are others, not that young. But most of them are not violent. There's always a minority of violent people that cause all this trouble. There are many more people that want to be part of Israel and to be peaceful than all these incited, foolish youngsters. That after you tell them about their origin, they understand the reality and they change their behavior. I know one Bedouin that was anti-Israeli. He is from a village called Arakiv that Israel destroyed 22 times because it was declared illegal settlement, Bedouin settlement, and they rebuilt it and so on. After he read my book in a very early origin, he said, I changed my view in 180 degrees. Another one is considered the leader, unofficial leader of the Palestinians in Jordan, Mudar Zaharan. And he told me, who changed my life. And he told me, he came from Tzorah. And he told me about all the three clans of Tzorah being of a Jewish origin. One of them of a German family, a Jewish family that came here, and his own clan are Kohanim. So it's all around. And we just have to take the initiative. There are many that will support us. I am familiar with one guy that was serving 5 life sentences in jail and was released twice. And he was ready, he's considered national Palestinian hero. When he heard me, he was ready to, he said, I am willing to sacrifice my life in order to make it happen because the people are suffering. And he said, I risked my life, I became handicapped. I sat tens of years in prison just to bring these crooks here that are stealing the money and leave us to live in poverty. Who needs them? We have been serving from the beginning like a soccer ball that everyone was kicking us in the direction that fit him. And it's enough. It's about time to stop it and to come to a serious resolution and serious direction to resolve the situation. I took him to the house of the mayor of Ariel, Ron Nachman, the late Ron Nachman. And we were speaking about what we are doing for peace and so on. And Ron Nachman said that I work with the mayor of Bidia, which is very close, in order to resolve water and sewer problems. So that guy at that time said, I killed the mayor of Midian because he collaborated with Israel. But now he wants the opposite. They understand that all these intifadas, not these naive youngsters, are a mistake. We came to, in the Erez passage to Gaza, some Palestinians were going through there. And they told us, save us. You brought the Hamas on us. You have to save us from the Hamas. This is a disaster. The inhabitants of Gaza have been initially, they are declared 1.5 million. Later they declared 1.8 million. Now they declare 2 million. But the reality in the beginning they were about 950. 350,000 left there because of the bad sanitation and diseases and plagues because of the bad sanitation. So altogether about 600,000 were left there. In Judea and Samaria, without Jerusalem, there are less than 1 million. But they are saying that with Jerusalem, that there are 1.2 more or less, there are 2.5. Why? In this way, they can steal a lot of salaries. As I mentioned before, the head of the security forces initially was caught getting every month 450 salaries. That's the way of cheating because they tell the West they had double the number of people and a number of employees of the Palestinian authorities. But half of the salaries they are sitting, putting in their own pockets. Now this head was not removed entirely and punished. He was became the military advisor of Abu Mazen because he knows about all the other crooks. And he replaced somebody from Yatta that was the previous military advisor. I met him and his grandfather told Yitzhak ben Tsvi in 1927 that they are Jewish. He was the Mukhtar of Samoa, the head of the people in Samoa. Then when he heard me, he took my book and went with the higher level general to Abu Mazen. Abu Mazen didn't want to listen and he was shy, ashamed to tell me what the result. So I met a Bedouin from the north, from the Nujidat tribe that was serving the Israeli army, and he is an advisor of Bibi. And he wanted to be elected to the Knesset in the last elections. So, and it was done the last minute. I told him, you don't have any chance. But Abu Mazen invited him to speak with him to Ramallah, but he refused. Why? They wanted to differentiate themselves from the other Arab politicians by being loyal to the Jews and to Israel. And he refused to go to Abu Mazen. I told him, go to Abu Mazen, see what he wants, and speak with him about this way of making peace. So he went there. Abu Mazen told him, yes, there have been here one small general, another big general with the same book in Arabic. And I refused to go in this direction. So that Bedouin asked him why. He told him, if I will go to a solution, in general, one state, especially one state, then all the crooks around me will murder me because they will not be able to continue stealing. And this is in addition to Hamas wishing to murder me. So I cannot do it. This is what he said to this Bedouin. So in general, this is the situation. We have to take the initiative, get rid of the Palestinian authorities. Many of the top, like Abu Mazen and Sabri Kat, will join, and Jibril Rajub will collaborate with us. But we have to take the money out of their hands and be responsible for managing the country with their own security forces, which is not a problem to move to our side because they hate all these crooks. Okay.
Questions, comments for
Wonderful.
who wants to start? Mrs. Block?
And that's a very interesting solution, but it would apply even if they're not Jewish.
Yes, but it's easier for them and for the world to accept such. But the solution is not just to bring them to be part of Israel, to let them first return to be part of the Jewish Israeli people. Only then they will get citizenship and a voting right. But before this, they will study Hebrew, they will study our history, they will study their own real history, who cheated them, who caused their misery, and they will learn Jewish tradition, they will learn and will have to vote for being loyal to the people of Israel, to the state of Israel, and to the Jewish morality. Because the Arab morality is a disaster for them as well.
But what did you say?
There is a problem that the rabbinate won't accept them unless they convert.
Yes, so they don't have to become Jewish, they become sons of Israel. Every religious Jew prays 3 times in a day, speaking about לקבץ גלויות ישראל, לקבץ נדחי ישראל. They were rejected from Israel by Saadia Gaon that says a Jew is being recognized by his religion. So they cannot be Jewish as they are now. But they have our own blood, they are Zera Israel, and by the process that I mentioned briefly, they will come back Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel. Only, and they can still be a Muslim and so on, but they are part of one people. If they want to be called Israel, then they will have to leave Islam or other religion. If they want to be considered Jews, then they will have this, to do this way or another way of conversion to Judaism. It doesn't have to be Orthodox, but will have several levels. But all of us will be one people. For example, the Haredim are saying that Chabad is the closest one to Judaism. They are not real full Jews. So we'll have a variety. That's what they're saying about Chabad.
They're afraid that they'll become like the Note Stream because they think that their Rebbe is going to sort of come back.
Never mind. What
There's
I'm
a fear.
telling you, we have even in general there is hatred between one Haredi group against the other more than they hate the secular. So in general,
But they don't kill each other.
no.
So then,
There's a-
Killing is the last of the problems. The main problem is the bad morality of lying and cheating.
Of the Arabs.
so what if these people who are devout Muslims say,
Yeah.
okay, we'll become part of your state, but then they decide to attack us out of a grom and say, mit Islam or else?
Okay.
What do we do?
Okay.
They,
First, we control the army. Had enough problems already. And we will have a law against incitement. Everybody that incite, like Raed Salah, or like the Mufti or the spokesman of Al-Aqsa, if they incite, immediately will arrest them or send them away. And in general, they had already enough problems, and this is why the real origin is important. Once they understand they're actually Jews that have been forced by the Muslims to become Muslim, then why they have to still be Muslim? Now, before we let them join us, we'll check by the Shabak and security forces that they are really going to be loyal. Then we'll continue to watch them, that they are loyal. We'll educate the youngsters to loyalty to us. And all the hostility will go away. I'm telling you, the hostility is the least of the problems. The corrupt morality is a much bigger problem to root it out from them.
I have a question. Haj Amin Husseini was permitted for years by the British to pillage and murder. They could have killed him in 5 minutes. Why did the British mandate permit this psychopathic mass murderer to murder thousands of Arabs create chaos of 40,000 Jews left the country. If they wanted to stop it, they could have stopped it in one morning.
Yeah.
And just killed him and his supporters and disarmed them. How did they permit this to go on through the 1920s and then in the 1930s? This was going on 20 years.
What a question. They were the ones who evacuated the Jews the next morning after the pogrom in Hebron. They somehow didn't do anything. They had their officers away for the
Yeah.
night of the pogrom. It's obvious that they were part of
And
it.
they did everything to keep Jews during the Shoah from getting out of.
But the same was bothering them too.
Ask why Obama wanted Morsi to win. General Suleiman won the election, but Obama told them, through the CIA, let Morsi win in order to get silence. The same thing, Husseini was nothing. They made him, despite it was not a religious leader, they made him the Mufti of Jerusalem in order to get silence here. They believed that he will give him the big position, he will keep silence. But they were disappointed. But this is naive, being the naive West, which are doing these mistakes.
Was the
And they were afraid to kill him or arrest him in order not to have more
Was this
violence.
coming from the first Jewish High Commissioner, Herbert Samuel, who was a disaster for Jews and Arabs and everybody? Was this his initiative?
Yes.
This is a good example of, in my own term, a friendly Gentile is always better than a court Jew, and Alexander Haig is always better than a Henry Kissinger, and you see repeated again and again. Even Harry Emerson Fosdick, there was a Protestant minister of the United States who came during the 1920s, and he was pro-Zionist. And he said, Herbert Samuel was trying so hard to appear even-handed that he ended up favoring the Arabs, or favoring that element of the Arabs who were a disaster to the Arabs and the Jews and everybody.
Yeah. So this is a conflict of interest. At the moment he puts somebody that belongs to one side, there is always a conflict of interest. Because if he's pro-Jewish, he will be blamed of being pro-Jewish. If he's anti-Jewish, he will be blamed as well. And if he's trying to run among the raindrops, with sometimes this and sometimes that, he is blamed by the two sides. So you can never put somebody that has a conflict of interest.
So where does Israel get a leader, a power holder, quote-unquote leader today, strong enough to say, I'm going to erase 25 years of failed policy going back to the Madrid Conference of October 1991. We're closing down the Philistine chaos, euphemistically known as the Palestine Authority. We're moving in, we're arresting these guys and charitably putting them in prison for all their theft. And we're seizing their assets worldwide. No Israeli leader will stand up to do that. Who will do such a thing? That's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Who will do it?
We can't even put in metal detectors.
Who will do it?
Okay.
Is there anyone there who could do it in the field of Israeli?
At the moment, there's nobody. All these politicians are mediocres. And take Bibi, for example. He doesn't care too much. He cares about his own fortune with the submarines and so on. I went to Paris. I spoke with an assistant of him that I brought him 3 Bedouin sheikhs from the south that spoke and told him about the truth. He told me, you are dropping on me two bombs, one of the facts and another one of the solution. But he told me, Peres will adopt it, or at least will meet you, because Peres for years he refused to meet me, despite of all the messengers I sent him. And if the chief rabbi at that time will support it, because Peres doesn't understand anything, or anything serious in the Jewish religion. So he wants the chief rabbi to support him. That chief rabbi, I was at his home when he was the chief rabbi initially, and he supported the direction.
Which
But
rabbi
when,
was that?
pardon?
Which chief rabbi was that?
The Mizrahi, Rabbi Amar.
Oh.
And when, after I spoke there with the assistant of Peres in the president residence. He refused to meet me, the chief rabbi, Amar. So there is no ability to move. When I spoke with Tsvi Chotoveli, she didn't refuse to meet me. She told me, I need psak halacha from the poskim, Arav Ovadia, and there was a rabbi from Haifa, the Ashkenazi one.
Shar Yeshuv Cohen.
No, before him. And I wanted to speak with Rabbi Ovadia. Rabbi Ovadia was a big scholar, a wise scholar. And everyone around him asked for bribery for himself, so I refused to pay. The other one, there was another rabbi who is the top expert on Bnei Noach. He went,
Of yours, right?
yes, he went to the rabbi in Haifa, and he was known as a big posek. He died already as well.
Shar Yeshuv Cohen?
He died already?
Yes.
I don't think that this is the name, never mind. And he was not able to
He was
explain
the
to
hero in the War of Independence. He lost a leg.
He was what?
Shar Yeshuv Cohen.
Shar Yeshuv Cohen. He lost a
But he's
foot
speaking about a different rabbi, but he doesn't remember.
in Haifa.
Why don't we figure this out later? Good
Yeah.
Okay,
point.
so Rabbi Schwartz was not able to persuade him. So I asked to meet him, but they didn't agree. But Rav Cook, Tsvi Cook, that was the head of the yeshiva here, the famous yeshiva, and he was the ideological leader of the settlers. When he was asked after 67, when he said to the people, you have to go and settle in Judea and Samaria, he was asked what he will do with all the local population here. So his answer, they will Judaize. They will Judaize, not convert, Judaize. They will become Jews. In Ben-Gurion spoke about this origin of the Palestinian. In 56, he sent Rabbi Goren, the chief rabbi, and Moshe Dayan and Chaim Kelevakov to Judaize the Bedouin in the south. The Bedouin were not religious, so they just wanted to make them part of the people of Israel because they knew their Jewish origin. And because he sent Orthodox instructors, and that time there was no Rahat. There were the Bedouin tents in the heat, and these Jews came with the black suits. It was impossible to stay there, so they fled away. And Moshe Dayan lied to Ben-Gurion and told him the Muslim states will object to this action. But Moshe Dayan failed at that time. He lied in many opportunities. But Ben-Gurion tried this direction of Judaizing, not converting the Israeli Arabs at that time. He was a believer that this common origin is the future solution. Ben-Gurion spoke about future solution for the conflict. More questions?
You want to say that? Thank you.
Sure. Okay, wow. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us. We want to thank you for a very inspiring, fascinating, and really amazing talk that you gave us this evening. Much food for thought for all of us. And Bezrat Hashem, we should just have solutions, and you've given us a different derek, something to think about.
Let me just add another 2 sentences. What will happen here as a solution is just a precedence. We know about 300 million seed of Israel around the world that were preserved as communities, not as a Jewish communities, but with other religions, but still communities of the people of Israel in different countries. I can start mentioning a few, but it's not important now. There are very interesting communities in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Japan, China, America, Spain, Portugal, in Africa,
Africa, it's Africa.
but that's not for now.
Okay, so we thank our
Speaker?
speaker, Mr. Tsvi Misinai, for his illuminating talk, and Dr. Glassman for his introductory and concluding remarks, and our audience here tonight, and of course all our viewers and listeners. And we wish you a Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem, Israel. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Misinai. Shalom.